Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We're just going to give people an extra minute to join, and then we will get underway. Okay, I'm still seeing people filter into the webinar, so that's great. And we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Bailey Berlanti, VP of Business Development here at Servita. I've met many of you before. It's great to see you guys again. Today, during this webinar, we're going to be talking about ARC and BSP processing. So similar to our past two webinars that we've done in August and September, we're going to do a presentation and cover the topic of this month, and then we'll follow with a Q&A. So there is a Q&A box that you are able to use to be able to ask any questions. I think there's an ability to ask them anonymously if you're feeling a little bit shy, but otherwise we're going to work on getting those at the end of the session. So feel free to be asking as Michael's going through the presentation. This webinar is being recorded, so all of you who are attending, or if any of your colleagues have registered but weren't able to make it, you'll receive the recording post-event, and then I'll work on also making sure that there's a viewing link for anyone who wasn't registered that might still want to benefit from the content. Everyone is muted with their cameras off, so as much as it's great to see you as attendees, we are not able to see you. We can unmute during the question and answer session if there's something that needs to be asked, and so we'll get to that if we need to. But for the most part, feel comfortable that you're not going to be seen or heard unnecessarily during the presentation. Before we get to ARC and BSP processing, which is today's topic, we do want to just let everybody know we do still have two more upcoming webinars as part of our fall lineup. November 20th. So again, notice that we had to switch from Thursday to Wednesday. Michael and Bailey were having too many conflicts and trying to help make sure we were a bit earlier in the day to accommodate more time zones. So we had to switch to Wednesdays. But November 20th, we'll have a presentation on XB50 and financial postings. So if you've got colleagues that work in the accounting world, we're wanting them to be able to attend that to better understand how the travel transactions in CentralCommand end up in their financials. And then on December 18th, we're going to be doing preparing for year end. Danny is going to come join us and talk about the two different ways that you can roll over your year end and how to troubleshoot that so that you feel successful for that. So the registrations for those have already gone out. So if you've gotten the email to be able to register for this event, there should also be the links to those. And I'll make sure that we also are sending out more emails over the next month or two so that you guys don't miss out on those as well. Okay. Well, without further ado, I know that time's going to fly by and Michael's got so much wisdom and knowledge to share with us. So I'm going to pass it over to him to talk about ARC and BSP processing. And again, feel free to be leaving any question and answers in the Q&A section so that we can be able to answer those at the end of the presentation. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Bailey. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Guiette. I am the Director of Product Management for Servita. Today's topic is going to be ARC and BSP reconciliation. We are going to be demonstrating these processes today in the web application. So just be assured that everything you're going to see today, if you are on the CentralCommand Milestone 7 version 7.5, these screens are also going to be available for you in the desktop application. The reason why we're focusing more on the web application, the web delivery, is so that more customers can publish information easier than having those remote desktops, than having the need to distribute software or to get other types of information out. It's about helping our customers save some costs. This way we don't have to have licensing for remote desktop and things like that. So with that being said, the first place I'm going to talk about here is in the Central Command module. So when we go to Central Command, your screen, depending on the resolution of your screen, may look a little different. But essentially what you're going to see is at the top right corner of your desktop grid, you will see the ARC and BSP module. Inside of that module, just like in the desktop, we have adjustments, we have ARC, we have BSP. One thing I will point out, the system administration for this, when we go into the access control, your access control window, when you go into the menu access, we would go down to Central Command, and then under the ARC and BSP folder, you still have the same access, so you can allow users to have that access. And then based on the roles and users that they've set up, you can give them very specific access to their information as they need it. So just like in Central Command desktop, the administrative users can go into system administration to provide the permissions for people to get to that information. Now, one thing you'll notice as I go into these modules, right now I'm in my United States travel organization. In a little while, we'll go into my Canadian travel organization. We will talk about the global BSP because the hot file is actually broken into two different versions of the hot file. Canada has their own version of the hot file, and then the global dish version 23 is the file that we import and reconcile for the rest of the world. So when we go into ARC reconciliation, the process flow is essentially the same as we've had throughout the past. The one thing that you'll notice is these screens are going to look very similar between your ARC and BSP modules. So what we're trying to do is to bring the information into screens that are more consistent with each other. With regards to ARC and BSP, we want to be able to train someone how to use the application once, and then whether they're using in the United States, they're using ARC, or in the rest of the world where they're using BSP, the functionality and the process flow remains the same. So when we go into the parse, again, we would have in the BSP file, we're going to have a parse and reconcile just the same way. In my environment, I would be loading my files into my import directory on my Business World application server. Most of you have a published link that you have a shared directory where you load those files into. You typically will name those files beginning with something, so you don't have to go in and put in a specific file name every time. When I use this, in my case, I always like to use the old LT, the LT. So if I've downloaded ARC files for 5 different ARC locations, and I put them into my import directory, all beginning with an LT, Central Command will pick up all 5 of those files at one time, parse them into the system, and then automatically run the reconciliation. So the process flow to get that data into the system remains the same. We parse the data from the ARC file, and then we reconcile it against those Central Command transactions. Now, I'm going to stop right here just for a second because I've gotten several emails from you all that says, hey, we were on that call with ARC a couple of weeks ago that said they're going to look at changing their delivery method of the ARC data. They want to go to, like everybody else, an API feed that would feed that information down to Central Command. We are aware of that. We've not received any specifications yet from ARC that they're going to do this. They're also looking at multiple forms of payment. So if you were on that call, the call initiated and they started talking about multiple forms of payment for ARC transactions. They are talking about up to 3, maybe more, but right now they mentioned 3. We do already have the support for multiple forms of payment within Central Command. So turning it on in the United States is not going to be that big of an issue. So just wanted you to be aware of that. As soon as they do publish us with some specifications, we will be looking at what can we do to initialize and work with the ARC team to make sure that we are getting the best information the fastest way we can. So I wanted you all to be aware of that. Once you parse and reconcile the information, we're going to come back to auto update here in a moment, because what you'll notice here in this application, the things that you don't see. So if I'm looking at the desktop application where I have full ticket refund or void ticket or spoiled tickets, so the auto update will take the place of those other screens where you had to manually go in and click on something, pull the screen up, select all the tickets you wanted to void, the voids that were in IAR, and it would then void those. What we've done here is we've created a process called ARC and BSP Auto Update. A lot of our customers in the United States say, we don't want to do auto update on exchanges because, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience here, because agents who do their own exchanges don't always do the calculations correctly. So what's in IAR, what's in the ARC exchange screen may need to be modified. And so what they do is they want to ignore exchanges in the auto update process. There are a lot of things that go into the update of exchanges and management of exchanges. So you have the ability to ignore those. You can also then fix adjustment amounts, fix the adjustment IATA location ID, unvoid adjustments, void adjustments, insert missing adjustments, add missing spoiled tickets. Now, we've been asked for this to happen in the BSP already. That functionality is under development right now and will be in our 7.6 release coming out at the end of November this year. So just be aware of that. Fix all ticket amounts. We don't separate the ticket amounts into each type of ticket amounts in the auto update. We're looking at the transaction as a whole. We want to make sure that when we fix all ticket amounts, we are updating the amounts in the Central Command transaction so that it matches what's in the ARC or BSP file. Auto refunding is if it's been refunded in the ARC or BSP, go ahead and refund it in Central Command. Same thing with unvoiding or voiding, and then kicking off the reconciliation process at the end as well. So once you've gone through, you've parsed, you've reconciled, you're going to go into the ARC exception viewer in Central Command. Now, in the exception viewer, this screen has changed. So the old legacy ARC and BSP exception viewer was pretty sparse with functionality. What I mean by that is you couldn't look at specific type of errors very quickly and rule things out. Maybe you want to look at something, maybe you don't want to look at something. In this screen, though, you can choose your ARC IATA location at the top, the issue dates to and from. If I don't put anything in there, I'm going to get everything. So that here is a little helpful. Again, always good to close the period at the end of the week, but we'll get there, I promise. So when you're looking at these filters underneath this next box here, this is the new functionality for filters. Opening these filters up allow you to look at the different types of errors that are in each one of these filter boxes. So all adjustment errors. It shows you the different types of errors for the ARC reconciliation, all refunds, voids, exchanges, all other types of errors, ticket not in CentralCommand, ticket not in IAR, ARC, amounts down here under the filters for amounts. Notice here the one that I personally believe is missing, but I feel it should be here, is the net IATA amount reconciliation. So where we look at the net IATA amount compared to the net IATA amount in BSP or ARC. I've asked our development team, working with the development team, I've asked them to look into that for me because I want to know if it's something that would be a big change to put into place. Let me know how you feel about that. All form of payment errors. Again, now the nice thing about this filter screen is, let's say that I have an order of the things I want to fix. So in this case, I may not want to see adjustment errors or refunds, voids errors yet, or all other errors or form of payment error. And let's leave form of payment. So we're going to leave the amount errors and the form of payment errors here. And I'm going to load. This screen then, when you load this screen, I'm going to point out something here that I have done in my own delivery environment. So on this screen, this ARC ticket Zoom box here was over here. So I took it and I click on the column header and I'm able to move that around. I wanted them side by side so I can look at the message of the screen, and then I can either go in and look at the ARC ticket information. I can look at the CentralCommand, CC, CentralCommand ticket / adjustment screen. Okay, so this would take me into the CentralCommand transaction. Now, when I zoom in on this transaction, it is going to take me to the new transaction screen. If you haven't seen this before, that means you were here and were not paying attention last time. The transaction screen, one of the things that customers have pointed out to us was that the screen didn't have the invoice items tab here next to the transaction tab, which meant that they had to go down, scroll down, pick the invoice item from the bottom of the screen, and then go back and forth to it. Again, this screen now is displayed so I can look at that ticket. And as I look at this ticket, let's see, which one am I looking at here? Let me go back to my ARC exception viewer. Let me show you that again, okay? Because what I did here is, for me to be able to form a payment does not match the ticket. So I'm looking at this ticket 9397 here. And so if I want to see the ARC information and I select it, I can look at the ARC information that says the form of payment is AR. But for me to go back to the transaction, I have to go back to the exception viewer and then go into the transaction. Looking at that ticket number, so I'm going to go into the invoice items tab again, 9397. When I select that and scroll down, you can see that it's a $0 invoice, but it's got an air travel card associated with it. what the BSP had done is they said, hey, this is AR. So by selecting the form of payment, changing it to AR, saving it, then when I rerun my reconciliation, that exception would go away. So by this is how we would make changes to those transactions. Now, if you look at these other transactions that are below this, because remember, I'm just looking at the amount errors and the FOP errors here. So if I'm looking at another one of these transactions, I do want to point this out. This is a tax amount discrepancy. And when we see this tax amount discrepancy, and it might be something that you're looking at and you're seeing a lot here, I can go into this transaction. And when I look at this transaction and go into that invoice items here, the first thing that I'm going to notice is that it's an exchange. Actually, this one has actually been exchanged as well, but it's an exchange. If you don't remember the last time we talked about this, the changes here in this box, instead of having to go to a manual exchange tab within your transaction screen, the exchange is displayed in 3 columns. The original amount comes from the original ticket that's in CentralCommand. If we don't have that original ticket, those are all going to be zeros. What will be populated from the new exchange interface message is the new ticket amounts and the exchange ticket amounts. Now, for me to look at this and try and go remember what the exchange error was, what I was looking at, what I want to be able to do here is I'm going to go back to my menu and I'm going to split the screen. The reason why I'm going to split this screen is so I can go into CentralCommand and notice now it's just one list. I'm going to come down. I'm going to go to my ARC exception errors. I'm going to deselect my filters again over here. I'm going to go into my amount errors, and I'm just going to look at my tax discrepancies, right? That's all I want to see. Go back over here. Okay, so on this transaction, I'm looking at the left-hand side here, and I'm looking at my ticket 6146, right? So it's that first ticket. I want to look at what is in the IAR file. So when I look at the IAR file, and we've all seen this before, the IAR file will show me the original ticket information on the bottom, the new ticket information on the top. When I get that exception error, I'm going to come all the way out here to the calculation columns. These 4 calculation columns will give me the differences that I'm looking at. It told me there was a 25-cent adjusted tax discrepancy. So when I look at the transaction now, when I go down to the taxes, you see that here, you can see the subtotal at the bottom, the original taxes versus the new taxes. That's where I've got that 25-cent difference. Now, the question that I ask personally is, this is an even exchange transaction. There are no amounts being collected on the new ticket. So that begs the question, do I care about that discrepancy, that difference? Do I want to put that into the new ticket amount field? And so you can see here, it is showing me that difference, but it's not making a difference on my net IATA amount on the exchange itself. So I'm going to just ignore those transactions. So that's where, when my filter comes into play, I can ignore those tax amount discrepancies for the most part, because it's not making a difference in my net IATA amount or my ARC reconciliation. that's the big difference between what we're looking at, the ability to filter those exceptions out so that I can focus on the exceptions that actually make a difference. So here you can see if I'm just looking at my amount errors, when I filter that tax discrepancy out, I end up with one, again, gross amount discrepancy. Okay, here IAR says a negative 498, Central Command says 0. So this gross amount discrepancy, again, may make a difference in my ARC reconciliation, net IATA amount. So those are the things that I'm looking at. The ability for us to use those filters to filter down the types of exceptions that we want to focus on while we're going through our corrections. Once we've either ruled them out as exceptions, we don't have to look at them anymore, or we've corrected them within the application, we rerun the reconciliation, and we can then move on to the close, the ability for us to finish the process. So back to our ARC process again. So the next thing, once we've gone through our ARC exception viewer, we've made corrections to our transactions and updating those transactions, then we have our reports at the bottom. Okay, let me back up one screen. There are a couple of more screens here. My spoiled ticket screen. If I'm adding spoiled tickets into the application, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load this real quick. So these are, oh, where are they? There we go. So these are the spoiled tickets that I've loaded into the system. Now, in the spoiled tickets, when I am adding, if I wanted to add a new spoiled ticket, a single spoiled ticket, I would click on add here. I would add that information. I have the type I can use. Tells me this is an EMD, an MCO, prepaid ticket advice. I don't, just as a polling question, Bailey, does anybody see prepaid ticket advices being used anymore today? I haven't seen one in the 6 years I worked with a travel agency recently. I didn't see one. So just wondering if that is still a thing. And then this is the transaction, and then your reason code. So the reason codes can be free-form text as you're putting it in there. Now, other times, if you're doing a group ticket, a group of tickets, and you're getting a SIMO on, 15 tickets that are sequentially listed, you still have the add spoiled ticket screen here at the bottom. This gives you the ability to put in the first ticket of that group, the last ticket of that group, load them all at once rather than having to load them one at a time. So just be aware of that. The final thing is, if you didn't notice it, or you probably did, when I was looking at the auto update functionality does allow you to add missing spoiled tickets. Now, this is in the ARC side of the house. On the BSP side, again, like I said, we are going to deliver that functionality in 7.6 coming out at the beginning of December. I think because Thanksgiving, United States Thanksgiving is so close to the end of November, where I think our now date is the first Friday in December. So just be aware of that information coming out soon. The reports, again, your ARC summary, IAR report, your ARC report, this is where you're going to close that period. Now, when you close the period, and sometimes we see people who run the ARC report, and when it's closing, the thing it is supposed to do is when you close this, it should remove the transactions that are associated with the IATA number and the period dates that you're using, it should remove those from the IAR, the TAC IAR table, so that next time when we run the ARC reporting, we should not see transactions or tickets that are outside your current reporting period. So the functionality here is to help you to make sure that you don't have a lot of those errors that say, ticket not in IAR, okay? Because that means that I've got a CentralCommand ticket that's being seen by the reconciliation process, but it's probably from a period before the current period you're reconciling. So just be aware of that. I do want to switch over then to the BSP. Again, if you're using the BSP, typically I'm not going to be in my United States environment. I am going to go to my Canadian environment. I'm going to go into the BSP, because when I look at the BSP, this is a little different as well. The run viewer allows me to list all of the hot files that I've loaded into this system, right? So now I can see, based on the run ID, I don't have to sorry, I saw my failed reconciliation here, and it kind of it threw me there for a second, but that's because I'm in a test environment. So when I'm looking at this data, this will tell me if I have reconciled it, if I've updated something. I ran auto update on this file, but I didn't rerun the reconciliation. So it allowed me to say, okay, I'm looking at, if I go back in and I look at that file number 29, and I go into my, let me close ARC here. I'm going to go back into my BSP viewer. So here, it always defaults to the last import file that I run. If I go back to file number 29, okay, and I load that, what it does is it will display for me all of the tickets that were in that import file. Okay, I don't have to worry about choosing dates on this. Things like that. If I'm looking at it, it's running that reconciliation. Now, there are times based on that run viewer. Okay, when I look at the dates, especially in Canada, we've seen that the transactions tend to give us an issued from date, the issued to date. Notice it's not just the 7 days. The reason why that's that way, the reason why I'm seeing older dates on this import file, is because if there were original tickets that were exchanged, refunded, that were outside the last 7 dates, it will send us those original transactions over again, so that we're seeing what the original transaction was, as well as the new transaction. But in this case, because the issue date 2, I want to go back into the exception viewer here, and I want to put 0512. And then if I just look at my calendar here, now I want to say, okay, I really want to just look at from 056 to 512. And what that's going to do, it's going to then allow me to filter out some of those other tickets that were in that larger date range because of the file import. Now I'm looking at all of my exceptions for that period, and because I ran the auto update, it didn't find any exceptions. I had the system already do some of those corrections. So I'm going to look at, again, now if I go in and look at file number 30, for example. Okay. Notice that we've got the same type of thing here. If I want to filter out going to filter out everything but my adjustment errors here. Okay. So now in this period for the run number 30, I didn't have any adjustment errors. So it does allow you to then focus. Like I said, the screens we're trying to put into place for both ARC and BSP are similar so that you can learn to use one, you can then automatically transition to the other, be able to manage data from both environments. Now, if I go back to my module here, notice that again, the parse here, very similar. You've got your import directory, you've got your file type, your file name, and then here we're going to choose what type of import is it? Is it the dish 23? Is it the Canadian hot file? There is a Mexican version of the hot file as well. So we have those that you can import that, automatically reconcile the transaction. If I look at the auto update, same thing. We have the functionality allows us to insert those missing adjustments. Notice these are in a little different order than the US ARC reconciliation. Reason why ARC was created first, and so their order was just a little different. But this allows me to choose, instead of having to choose by dates, I can just put in, okay, give me run number 30. Update all of the transactions and the errors that were in run number 30, which allows me very simply to be able to understand what those errors were and what I wanted to be able to correct in here. Now, there is a way that you can create a variant here. When you create the variant here, it allows you, let's say that you want to fix certain types of errors first. Okay, I want to do my adjustments first. Then I want to do my void tickets or my refund tickets. So you can do those auto updates separately by creating a version and using the file number, run number in this. I can do my adjustments first, then I can do my voids, then I can do my refunds. By setting up the variant of this, at the top, then you would just choose which variant do I want to use and run that. It makes it a little easier than having to go to a screen, pull up those that says, oh, all of these tickets were voided in BSP, going in and selecting them all, and then going through that void process. This is just a little easier. Same thing goes with I want to show you the view ticket list here. The BSP view ticket list. If I go in and say, okay, this is run number 30, remember my reconciliation failed on 31. So it's still imported. It's still parsed all of the ticket data for these transactions. And so again, on these screens in the web, we have that ability to move these columns around. And if I move the column and exit this screen, when I come back to the screen, this column is going to be in the same place that I put it. So as long as I've got my cache in place and everything, now if I go clear my cache, you may see this screen switch back to its default. But as long as my cache is represented and I've saved that here, you'll be able to come in, the screen will be the same every single time. Speaking of cache, if you don't know how to change the cache or update the cache in the web, when you go into your profile, you go to your about. It's about here. you can say clear the cache. Okay, clearing the cache, that clears the unit 4 cache in the web application. Okay, so let's see, where are we here? We are about 5 minutes away. Want to see what else? So adjustments. Again, if we look at the adjustments very simply, we've got the adjustment load. We can see what the adjustments, let me back this up to, okay, very similar to what we had in the past. Here we've got the adjustment type. We still have the adjustment import you can run based on that file. You can set up how you want to load that file into the system. You can look at this. It does say this transaction. You can still put something in here, put it on hold. The advantage, if you haven't used the hold flag yet, the advantage of having the adjustments in place in CentralCommand before you're ready to pay them. So if I'm looking at this adjustment screen and I'm doing research on it, I need to talk to the agent. I need to go find out, was there a ticket number? So I'm going to go to the BSP link. I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to look at it. The action overview, this is where I can put in a memo based on what research I'm doing. Who am I talking to? What am I finding out in my research? Do I need to attach any documents to this? If the airline or the GDS gives me a waiver and I void this adjustment, I want to put a note here so that when I'm looking at this transaction or I'm looking at the workflow on this transaction, I can have everything in the system rather than my Excel spreadsheet or my filing cabinet where I'm storing all of those documents. Everything can be in one place, which makes managing those adjustments much easier from within the system. Okay. With that, I think, and I know I'm a couple of minutes early, Bailey, but I want to open it up. Do you have any questions that to start with that we can get into? I know this group. I know we've got a lot of questions about ARC and BSP reconciliation.
I do. So as a start, going to the parsing process, is it LT or LT star that you need to put for the file name?
If you are dependent, okay, so the asterisk in Unit 4 Business World, ERP, sorry, Bailey, in ERP, the asterisk is a wildcard. What that means is if your file name starts with LT, the asterisk says, I don't care what's after it. You can have a date after it. You could have a long file name after it. It doesn't matter what's after the LT. It's going to look at your import directory, wherever your import directory is. Mine happens to be on my application server. It's going to look at the import directory. It's going to say, do I have any files that start with LT? The asterisk only says, ignore whatever's after the LT. Okay, just pick up anything that starts with an LT and try and parse it into the system. Okay, thanks.
So going to where you were talking about exchanges, yes, and the commission amount, we had a question about that topic, about the net IOTA amount. Is that referring to the problem that customers get with hundreds of discrepancies for all the transactions where they have a commission on the ticket?
It could be. Yes. Okay. Let me point. That's a really good question. So if I go into my exception viewer here, okay, and I'm going to actually search all files in this BSP, I'm going to look down here, and on the exception, if I'm looking for commission CAD is commission amount discrepancies. Okay, so in this case, what you see here, it says commission and or supplemental commission amount discrepancy. Okay. When you look at after the description here, if you look after the end here, what you see is you see 4 different amount fields. Okay. This is the commission amount from BSP. This is the supplementary commission amount. This is the commission amount from CentralCommand, and this is the supplementary commission amount from CentralCommand. Now, this is a great example. So what I'm going to do here, so I can show you both of these, I'm going to go ahead and split my screen real quick. Thanks for asking this question, whoever did. And I'm going to go into my BSP, and I'm going to come over here to my exception again and put in CAD. Take out 31, and I'm going to load it. All right. So now I'm looking at this ticket number 4261. Okay. Same one here, 4261. I'm going to open the BSP ticket. Okay, now this happens to be a BSP service fee. Okay, and so it's really kind of a good example, because when I go look at the ticket in CentralCommand, go to the invoice items, and we're going to the service fee. So down here in CentralCommand, we're looking at a few things. Okay, the first thing that we're looking at is the amount of the excuse me, the amount of the service fee here is $35. Okay, $35 commission amount on the service fee. Now, we know that in Canada that they charge a VAT tax, a provincial or it's either a federal tax, a value-added tax, or a provincial value-added tax. Now, when I look at this, in this case, the full tax amount is calculated as additional commission, and the reason why it's calculated as additional commission in Canada is because the agency has to pay tax on that commission amount. Okay, and so what's happening here is where CentralCommand has the commission amount as $35 plus the tax on commission, which is the $455. That's what gives me my total net amount of $39.55. If I come over to what the BSP sent us, okay, the BSP sent us this. They have the tax amount of $455, but they have tax on commission as 0. So one of the things, if I go back to the exception on this, let me jump in here real quick, because I want to pull this ticket number. And I'm going to take out this CAD and just look at the ticket number itself. Because the reason why is because I've got 3 different exceptions on that ticket number. Okay, I've got the commission and supplementary commission amount, and then I've got the tax on commission amount. Because what's happening here is BSP and CentralCommand is looking at a different the different fields that BSP provides. So when it says, hey, my tax on commission from BSP says 0, the tax on commission down here from CentralCommand says $455. So that's one of our discrepancies. Even though my net IATA amount, my remittance amount here, $39.55, is the same as my net IATA amount in CentralCommand. So we're not today, CentralCommand doesn't look at those two, the remittance amount versus the net IATA amount in both of those screens. So that's one of the things that we're looking at right now today as well. Does that tax amount discrepancy matter when my net remit amount on both CentralCommand and the BSP match? But that's what's happening here. So if I'm looking at this commission amount, right? So the commission amount here, this total commission amount is what CentralCommand is comparing on that commission amount discrepancy. It's saying, if I look at this total commission amount and I look at this total commission amount in CentralCommand, those are different. That's why I'm seeing that supplementary or commission amount discrepancy as well as the tax on commission discrepancy. Because based on the BSP specification, the hot file specification, they told us that they have a field for tax on commission, they have a field for commission amount, and they have a field for net remit amount, right? And so we're populating the data into these fields based on their specification and then comparing it to the matching fields or the matching information in CentralCommand. That's why you may see, in this case, these exceptions are what I would consider a false exception, because what's happening is the BSP is providing us data that's not in the fields that they told us that the fields should be, if that makes sense.
So to make sure we get to the rest of the questions,
there's more. Okay.
I got plenty. So you might have to start shortening your answers to some of them. Maybe we'll just maybe answer this quickly. When is the hot fix coming for all these false errors that can be ignored?
There will be some in the 7.6. And again, the advantage of having this screen and the ability to ignore them here right now, if I look at that, the amount errors, and I know that my tax amount discrepancy, not tax on commission, but tax amount discrepancy, I know those are going to be false errors. They're not going to be something I necessarily have to look at. The reason why you're seeing the error is because when we compare the fields in CentralCommand that match the fields in the ARC or BSP files, the data that they've told us they're providing is not in the same field that they told us it would be in their specification. And so what we're doing is, and again, one of my things, and I know customers have done this, is they run a report that says, show me the net amount discrepancy. If there's no net amount discrepancy between CentralCommand and BSP, that means the amounts of my BSP are going to reconcile with what's in CentralCommand. So I think that I don't know if there's a way to get rid of all of the false exceptions, because the problem isn't necessarily that it's not an exception. The problem is that the data that we're getting from ARC or BSP isn't populating based on what their file specification told us it would be. So
okay,
I'm looking at those. We're looking at those every single day. And so if you have, again, specific questions, email back to the link of the meeting, and we'll provide you some more information or some suggestions. How's that?
Right. I got another question on the exception viewer, and then we'll turn our attention to the auto update for some questions. So on the exception viewer, will the exception viewer show total BSP payable and aggresso amount and the variance?
So yes, because when we're, let me see, where am I? I'm in Canada. If I'm in that exception viewer and I'm looking at my amounts, and I'm going to sort this when I load this slowly. Come on. I have to click the button. So if I load this, I'm going to sort this by ticket number, okay? Because the reason why I'm sorting it by ticket number is so that I can see the multiple exceptions on that ticket, right? So, and if you look at this, this is run number 2, this is run number 3, right? So if I go in and I say, okay, just show me run number 3 here.
But does that screen show the total BSP payable and then what Central Command has and the difference, or do you have to go to a report to see that?
Well, yeah, right now you have to go report because we're only showing what the discrepancy is, right?
On that
And
individual
so,
ticket.
yeah, so you can see what we don't, like I said, we don't have one that says the net remit amount, right? What we show is the field where that discrepancy is. And so, so now I understood the question. Now I understand the question. But so specifically, the answer is no. On this screen, we do not show you what the net amount is from Central Command and the net amount from the BSP hot file. But that's a pretty good idea. If we added that field to this screen, that might be a good idea.
Have the
so I'll take that under advisement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so going to the auto update.
Yes.
We had a question of, are you able to show us the auto updates on adjustments for BSP? And will the customer ID come across into Central Command when you do the BSP auto update?
So in the BSP auto update, when we do adjustments, like inserting adjustments, okay? And that was adjustments you were talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So when we're doing those adjustments, it really does depend on whether or not the BSP file provides us with the original ticket number that goes along with that adjustment. Because remember, when we load adjustments into Central Command, so if I go into the adjustment screen and I look up my adjustment inquiry, okay, in that adjustment, all of this information, the booking information, the ticketing, the agent information here, all comes from an original ticket number. So if on that BSP hot file, they have provided us with a ticket number and we put in that original ticket number along with that adjustment, then yes, it would be populated with the customer ID that's associated with that original ticket number.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. And then on the auto update, is there an option to auto update commission and the tax in Central Command to reflect what's in BSP or ARC? And then as a follow-up to that, do we have an option to set up a tolerance level of Central Command to update for the reconciliation? So going back to what you were talking about with the commission or tax discrepancies, is there a way to do an auto update on that? Or is there a way to be able to kind of adjust Central Command so that it's not as sensitive to those amounts?
Yes. So here you have one flag right here that I'm toggling. This says fix all ticket and FOP amounts. Okay, so that one toggle looks at the BSP or the ARC file and it updates the amounts that have the discrepancies on them. So the first we don't say only fix the tax amounts, only fix the commission amounts, only fix the net IATA amounts, right? We don't have it separated to that level. It says, look at the BSP file and make the central command amounts match what's in the BSP file. The second part of your question is, was there a tolerance available? And the answer to that right now is no. You're just saying whatever's in the BSP or the ARC file, accept those amounts. Again, ignoring exchanges, because sometimes we know we don't want to auto update exchanges, but use auto update to update the amounts of the central command transaction so that it matches the amounts that are provided in the BSP or the ARC file.
All right. We got through everyone's questions that got sent in. We are right on the dot. I guess we've now just done a minute over, but we hope to see you guys in November and December. Like I said, be on the watch out for recording if you need review. And if there's any questions, most of you guys have Michael or I's or someone at Servita's email to chase us down and help get more assistance on ARC and BSP. So happy reconciling, everybody.
And just one last thing, oh, where'd you go? Come on, let's go here. So just in case you're wondering, 69 days till Christmas, folks. So, just be aware of that. It's coming quick. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week, long weekend, and we will talk to you soon.